drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Fencel in the morning continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Buttons.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Boston's Inquiry Sunday Sermon. What a pleasure it is to be back. We love doing this, really.
Yeah, it's great.
So no one ever. Me, John and Chris, as usual, will be going through the week's events, and there's absolutely plenty to go out in this game. Don't worry about that. And we'll certainly put a satirical look on it, as well as some harsh criticism, which obviously is deserved given the outcomes of certain instances this week. Right, without further ado then, let's look at the weekend's action, back at the weekend's action. And John...
You haven't said hello to us yet. How fucking rude are you? Normally you say, welcome, my two favourite people. That's not, I live for that moment. That's the only time in the week someone says that I'm their favourite person. They've taken that away from me as well. What's the matter with you people?
You've gone down in my fucking estimations lately, you two, so there you go.
Fuck you. We're going to set our own one up, John. Be better than this bollocks anyway. Anyway, carry on.
No welcome this week.
And there were two rallies as well, and in a packed programme tonight.
Yeah, he had a funny... John was working on his lines all week for, when he says welcome or, born ready. He doesn't just come out of a can, Lee. We have to work to be this weird, fucked up and incompetent. Yeah,
an incompetent intro there from your two twats anyway. Anyway, good evening. Yes, we're here. Good evening from him and good night from me. So we come on to the racing this weekend. And John, forgive me, I wasn't around on Saturday to take much of the coverage in, etc., etc. The same today. I did watch certain races, but you say this is a disaster for the sport on what's been happening over the weekend in the national hunt scene.
I think it's been absolutely awful today. I'm not trying to be glib about it, but if they had cameras at Balaclava back in the day, it would have probably gone down about as well as today's offerings. I mean, we basically had a winner drop dead in front of live TV cameras. A Buffalo Soldier, the winner of the handicap chase, led all the way.
Yeah.
Hugely impressive round the jumping, never touched a twig, as I say. Ridden out up the hill, and then he's circling at the collection point. Alice doing the usual with the long mic. She gets through ever so many questions as the horse is circling. And then his stride shortened up. He took a couple of false steps and keeled over.
What? And everyone saw that on camera?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Green screens up. Obviously, the tragic news transmitted via Ed Chamberlain later on. I don't know how you can sell it.
You're right. But I suppose, right, and I like to just play devil's advocate. I'm not saying that this is what I believe in, but with it being a heart attack, that could happen on the flat maybe, the same thing. Horses reach high revs and so on and so on. It can happen no matter what kind of racing you're doing. So normally the jumps is sort of like negative for fallers and horses breaking the neck, etc. to bad jumps. That's worse to see. But I suppose the timing of this in terms of, right, this is Alice Plunkett, here goes the long mic, all viewers are listening to what the jockey's got to say, and then bang. Wow, I find that incredible. Chris, what's your take on that?
Well, I think, it's nobody's fault, is it? But as John says, it's very, very difficult to sell that to the so-called, yet to be converted audience when you see horses keeling over in front of the stands or in public view. I mean, it's just, you just can't do it, can you? I mean, I just don't see how you can sell this sport to an audience that isn't already, hooked into it. So I don't know. Did you back it though? Because then you can put a nice tweet out. Terrible scenes, but at least I got me a few quid out of it. So, there'll be plenty of those on Twitter.
There was the thing I noticed as well. I mean, I tell you, they were casting round for something to show while they were waiting the news of Buffalo Soldier. Unsurprisingly, I'd opted for a review of what had happened previously at the week and trying to pick out some highlights.
Yeah.
And then I thought, really, basically bad luck for ITV because you couldn't expect them to think of this, but I thought while I was watching it, the first highlight that they showed was John Bond fighting off all comers up the hill. 3 horses in tight close-up with the jockey's whips absolutely pinging off them. Coming up that hill, and you've got one just collapsed at the finish there. I know you need second sight on it, but the fact that it was in close-up rather than just the standard shot, where you wouldn't have seen these whips absolutely bouncing off these horses' asses. Because bear in mind the prevailing mood of the viewer at that time.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh my God, this is going from bad to worse.
Yeah, look.
And that's me, you know, and I mean, you know I'm not sentimental about horses regard what can happen in races, you know.
Well, you eat fucking anything, don't you? Go to the moor in a car and run over sheep. So I mean, it's
yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean, fuck me, honestly.
Well, back then
it wasn't a great look, though, was it? I mean, you know, it was just slightly less surprising than Warren Greatrix training a fucking winner. I think plenty of people would have dropped dead hearing about that, wouldn't you? When was the last winner he had?
I think he's had a few recently, but
is he?
Yeah, he's not as bad as what he used.
That's got to be the end of in-saddle interviews, hasn't it?
Again, this is the thing, though. Everything then, that's the end of that. Oh no, we can't do that.
You got it. That's exactly it.
If we're big on welfare, though, Lee, I mean, that's a basic, isn't it? Surely the horse is pulled up. It's done 3 mile. It needs water and it needs its heart monitoring.
Yes,
they do that in eventing as standard.
That's a fair point. I don't know if that's the case.
You know, if we're going to go big on welfare, let's do it properly. You know, I mean, let's not just make super small fences and pay lip service to it. Let's do it properly.
You make a good point there, and I don't know if that's the case. Have they got water for them at the top of the pull-up at the hill at Cheltenham?
What I'm saying is, they probably have got water there, but that horse wasn't given water. He was walked round while Alice was talking to the jockey. And why does the jockey have to stay on its back? Dave Greenwood contacted me after the race, and he made an excellent point. Why did you need to be ridden back into the winner's enclosure? That jockey could hop off after he pulled up and laid him in.
You can bet your life, because it's happened today. There'll be a lot of talking points early this week about that, and obviously in what can be done to improve the situation. But the optics obviously don't look great, and that's the case with National Hunt Racing at the moment, which is severely under pressure. And the fact that you're having to reduce fences in size and take out some of the birch to make them soft. If you look at the declarations,
Tell you we lost one in the next race. Like, predict the hurdle, where we lost it.
Would it be that second last one, the downhill one?
There we go. Been a death trap for how long? And what happens? Nothing.
Well, this is the interesting thing, that you have an undulating track, Pull and Downdale. You might want to think about the positioning of your hurdles and your fences a little bit more. You want welfare, you want them all to come home at the end of the day. It shows you how worried people are, because how many people do you see on social media, I hope they all come home safe? It's that cliche, isn't it? It's as if you're like pleading to the Almighty, saying,
I mean, let's be fair, if you were that bothered, you just wouldn't run them. Safe, if you don't put them in the horse box and send them to races, they're safe until they kick out in box and shatter a fetlock or something, but that's another matter.
Like it's been said before with the national fences, all it's done that he made it's not even a competitive race. It's not even a stiff jumping test anymore. Soft fences, fall rate now is lesser than ever. Look, I suppose that's the object, isn't it? But at the same time, it's took away a lot of glitz from the race and what it was. But then I'm sounding like I want them all dead.
Face it, it's boring, isn't it? It's not as exciting as it used to be, and I think that's the issue, isn't it? It's the thin end of the wedge. As John says, if you're going to do welfare, do it properly. You know, do the whole thing, which is, I know for a fact, as John rightly says, after eventing, they monitor the heart, they do the whole lot. Let's have a regime in place that really tackles welfare, rather than these sort of, rather than these minor amendments and tweaks. You know, if you're going to do it, let's cave into the welfare people and do it properly. And I think if you do that, you'll push them back at least for another season or two before they come back for something else.
National Hunt Racing, it certainly has got some questions to answer in terms of...
What about barbed wire fences? Where do we stand on that? Do you like the idea of that? No?
Stand very carefully on it, I would have thought.
I'd like to see a few fucking jockeys put through them, like the week I've had. Yeah, fucking let them have a go. Certainly the flat jockeys.
The stiff birch fences that we used to have are no more now. Horses can go through fences now, make a hole in them. And all that happens is they just then cordon the fence off. In the old days, if you jumped that low into birch, it wouldn't be a repaired fence. It'd be the arse over tit. And that's how it was back then. It was a jumping test. Now, I don't think there's not many courses around, prove me wrong, that where it's an absolute jumping test in the UK anyway.
There are a few, aren't they? But the general direction of travel is to make the fences much softer than they used to be. So it's less of a jumping test, really. Which I guess, look, if you're going to concede ground to people that are pushing for the sport to be outlawed, and you want to have one last roll of the dice, do welfare properly. But currently, all we've got are these little tweaks here and there, and it's never enough for these people. So let's give them what they want. Let's dial it right down. Heart monitoring, all these kind of regimes in place, and see what happens then.
So Cheltenham on Saturday saw Doyen Quest win the handicap hurdle there, and I'm mentioning this one because they've got planned for him, but he's a horse that fine in a sort of a Coral Cup, he'd be fine in a Pertemps final, but this horse got a lot of ability, and we think he's 145 plus, don't we?
Yeah.
He made a howler on the first circuit. The time wasn't great, which meant they went fairly slow, and he still managed to rifle through the race and pick them off. And he's got some class, this lad. I noted him last year, so I know it sounds a bit trumpety, but he will win a big pot. That's all you got to know, whatever Fat Skelton aims him at. Saturday was also a nice day. Plug here for Bar Stewards Extra. We don't do many plugs, but Catherine Fry, 12 into 5-2, the bumper winner from the Irish info line. She was absolutely on point with that one, and extra members had it right off on Saturday there in the bumper. Get subscribing, it's £9, and you get things like this. I've picked out a note from John does 4 weekly notes.
It's worth £9 per article, I would say. That's the quality of it, and that's not me just saying.
The Racing Post is in demise because they haven't employed John to do the adult version. Do not read this if you are a Fender version of the Spotlight column. I think I'd pay any amount to read that. This is John's note on Cradle of Love from Dundalk this week. This is what we want to see in racing analysis. We don't want to see, had every chance and ran on well. No, Cradle of Love looks a complete bastard, and there's nothing much else to say about him. Put a line through him and never back the cunt. That's told everyone in the world that Cradle of Love, that's him done. Did you back it, John?
No.
I've always said this to John. I try and sense when he's back one because, I can see rage getting more and more throughout his note, and I think he's had a little tickle on that, and he's dogged it in a finish. So I just wondered there if that were one that you'd...
I actually sort of had it under a bit of a question mark for a couple of runs, and that was the end of the story, I'm afraid.
So I get £9. Adam Norman's notes, Andy Richmond's beating the bias column. You get all sorts for your £9. A tremendous read, plus extra podcast, midweek madness, and stuff like that. So honestly, it is absolutely top-notch value. Moving on to the big race on Saturday, John, which was Il Ridotto's race. The front end held up, didn't it?
Very much so. As was probably likely when it was Eddie to the Jeep making the running early on, I thought, well, this one is not going to go fast enough to get them at it, really, and thin them out.
Yeah.
A Chris Poole moment here, having backed the winner.
We're doing it in style to start this off. Yeah.
I was highly delighted with both track position and pace.
Yeah.
I thought I was in business from a long way out, which is unusual for me over the sticks. Plus, I had the golden Shylock on my shoulder back in the Fergie horse.
Oh, the luckiest owner got to be in racing. Not only did he have the best group of young footballers delivered to his door back in the day when he managed Manchester United. Since he's got in the racing game, Bahrain trophies, 2, a dual Bahrain trophy winner this week, and now he's had that.
Yeah, the winner Friday at Cheltenham. Him and Redknapp, it's scary how much luck they have as owners.
The lads wouldn't have a bar of him, though, would they? Wanting breeding rights for Rock and Gibraltar.
They sorted him out after that, didn't they?
Out the doors over there, sir. You're not having any of that. So Il Ridotto obviously doing the business for John. I thought the eye catcher in the race, especially because it wasn't that fancied. It was on the first run, Big Dan Skelton, was Madara. I thought that was right from the back.
He'll be getting that ready for the Feds, won't he? And hopefully he's going to finish 5th or 6th.
Brian Drew's got that. So it's one of them, really. Who knows what race that will be targeted for? That's the problem with these guys. So you might think next run this would be a good thing, but they might have another target. That's the problem with the jumps game. Pick and choose where they want to be busy, so to speak. Blood the Sud, John, do you think that's got an arkle squeak?
Till we say what Mrs. Mullins, Elliott and the Bromhead have.
Yeah.
Then the hopes will wither on the vine, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a bit early to say, isn't it? Okay, so Sunday, obviously we've mentioned about the bad side of racing today, a Buffalo Soldier. But the one race I want to talk about today is the Greatwood. I am convinced we're going to see a potential star in Burdett Road. And the reason I say it is because that's his 4th run over hurdles. He's an enigmatic sort. He's gone handy on the flat, but yet they've always tried to settle him. When he got beat 10 lengths by Sergino, they held him up last.
He hasn't done a lot wrong since I put him up to the Aber, has he?
No. Absolutely not.
He's proven to be highly progressive once he's settled. It was the settling that was the issue. The Burdett Road of today would get a lot closer to Sergino.
I think he's happy up front. He's won Greatwood. Handicapper will look at that and maybe go 7, which takes him to 140. If I owned Burdett Road, the disgraceful Gredley's own him, of course. If I owned him,
you'd put Callum Shepherd on him, wouldn't you?
over fences.
Just as a fuck you, Gredley's.
I would be saying for Burdett Road, I think we're looking at Betfair Hurdle at Newbury. That is the perfect race for Burdett
The
Road.
old Schweppes.
The old Schweppes, Turk Gold Trophy.
Yeah.
And I think Burdett Road can make up into a Grade 1 performer. I'm certain of it. He's too much class on the flat. He's genuine. There's nothing not to like about him. And I really do feel that he is the one that will progress into a Grade 1.
Well, he ran the finish out of Dice Artinos before the second last, really, didn't he? So, and that was reckoned to be the one, wasn't it?
Yeah. When people said be aware, well, that's come from way back and ran well. It has. To be fair now, to be aware, that's like 4 seconds on the Rodneys, and you're getting a bit worried now with that. I would anyway. It were a big effort. If Burdett Road didn't have to use that energy to beat off Dice Artinos like he did, he had more class than she did at that point, which you'd expect for an 100-odd flat horse. And he can jump. It's just whether he settles, and I think he was happier out in front.
That was kind of what I was thinking about Dice Artinos. I thought, well, with some people thinking that was disappointing, but at the end of the day, are we that shocked that 100 and odd racing flat horse ran the finish out of her?
Indeed.
She probably hasn't done a lot wrong there. In fact, she probably run the best race of her life. And she might not be as well bet next time as a result of people thinking it was disappointing.
Yeah, I agree. I love the third. He'll probably put up 2 for that. 133 still. They think she's absolutely well handicapped. So again, they'll be thinking of a big pot with her. But I do think the Betfair Hurdle would be my sort of principal target. Or if they want to go to Ascot, Mechall on the 2 mile sharp track round there for a big handicap, that's also on the board. I think you're going to see Burdett Road go right through the ranks into the very high ratings of hurdlers this side of the pond's got. Anyway, moving on to back to the flat, Charin running Kyoto, Japan. Got beat, finished 5th. Another stride or 2 might have been 2nd. Wouldn't beat the winner, but the winner had a dream trip. Did you see the race, John?
Yeah, I did. Probably fast enough for Charin, wasn't it?
Early, he struggled, didn't he? We've had some listeners' messages saying the ride on Charin was a disgrace. I don't think he could have done much more because he just was unable to lie up with them. Whether that's after a long season, he's been on the go a long time. We did say this before, he's not missed a dance. Then you go to Japan at the end of the year. He could have been a bit flat. He stayed on nice.
Where was Still, doesn't he like sushi or something?
Well, he's done, hasn't he? Japan wouldn't have him.
Yeah.
Because he's Hong Kong, so that's why Sil wasn't on board. I don't know, he looked a bit laboured early. He just didn't get into any stride. Awful position. I just think that's what it was. It's just one of them things. End of season for Charin.
I've been at it since March. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Well, that's it. It's a long time, isn't it? Right, we'll move off racing. Bored of racing now. We are actually, yeah. Talk about anything bar racing.
Yeah, racing shit.
It is. Should the Cheltenham November meeting be 2 days instead of 3, said Neil Watson. You'd have it 1 day.
I'd get it completed within 90 minutes, I think.
Yes.
You just look at Monday's cards, Plumpton Exeter, and tell me the national game is thriving.
Yeah.
It's on its arse.
You'll do well to get me out of the scratcher tomorrow. That.
All in bed tomorrow on Monday.
Not together. We're just separately in bed.
Yeah, don't.
Just the avoidance of
There's some listeners out there. I think we all live together in a big bar, Stuart.
Yeah. If you've seen Johnny Depp's version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you know when all his family are all in bed in one cottage.
The old lazy old bastard in bed getting the grandchildren out to earn him a few quid. I think that's the grandpa, Charlie Bucket's granddad. What a lazy bastard he was.
Yeah,
unreal.
Laid in bed, lot of them. Incredible.
Go on, get me a few quid. Go on, you lazy little fucker. Yeah.
Get up them chimneys.
Yeah, go on, get out of it. Get
your grandma scissoring.
Next subject, the David Power Cup. 1.5 million in prize money has been made available for jockeys in whatever race series or get points for, etc., etc. Prize money for jockeys in this series. I'd like John's take on this, first of all. John, what's your take on this?
Well, I know it's the ever controversial James Nice. He's right behind this. Basically, he's rubbish the ROA, who were critical of this, saying owners don't get anything out of it and what have you. James absolutely went to town on Twitter. Said, I can't have this as fair criticism. The point of the Cup is to increase engagement and interest in the sport, which absolutely would benefit owners in the long run. Chucking 200k to the leading owner in the series and giving that to JP or Richie Rich or whoever else.
Does he have a point there,
Yes.
Chris? So I noticed this. I looked for articles on this, and it made mainstream media. Is that a point where it's worth paying the 1.5 million for ITV to go all drooly over it, make it a thing? And gain outside engagement. It's surely better than Jermaine Genius.
Oh yeah, mind you, anything's better than Jermaine Genius. I'd rather have sort of Rod Hullenemu now. Actually, I think would be a more effective ambassador for the sport. He does have a point. It is less worse than throwing money at the likes of Richie and JP, who both of whom I would suggest don't need the money. But equally, engage people in what? In a sport that you can't have a bet on, and on a sport that requires people to gamble for its survival. So yeah, you could probably get more people through the door and more people watching. But if they can't bet to the level they want and they can't make any money out of it, right, without being severely restricted, it just seems to me deck chairs on the Titanic, doesn't it? I mean, I get the logic of it, and I get the whole idea. Yeah, we need to get more people into the sport, but for what purpose? They can't bet on it, or they can't bet on it with any great success. So, frankly, it strikes me as just a what's the word? Just a bit of grandstanding, really. But yeah, I mean, if you had to decide who gets the money, you wouldn't give it to Richie, would you? But I would argue that it's a pretty pointless endeavour on its own anyway.
I do get the thinking behind it. I'd rather have something like this than the Racing League, which gets no outside engagement, none.
But what's this going to give you? What do you envisage this is going to give you that the Racing League does?
Believe me, I'm only my views on this.
I do. I'm just trying to tease them out.
I'm being devil's advocate in saying that, don't forget, 90% of punters aren't affected by anything because they have £10 bets, £5 bets. They're not serial winners. They're not trying to have everyone's pants down. They just love it. That's who they're trying to attract. I think they're trying to attract. I know what me and you think, but that's not relevant to this because you can see the direction they're going in that they want more of the tenor lads to get involved with. Oh, this jockey, he's just won $500,000. He's just won.
No one cares about that, though, do they? They're not footballers. You're never going to make sort of superstars into national hunt jockeys. They've tried it. I mean, you, as John said, I think in the previous thing, you go down the street, ask people to name jockeys, they're probably push. The older people would say, we're Lister Piggott, and then maybe you get the younger ones, say Frankie Dettori. Beyond that, no one will know. And I'd even say as far as AP McCoy, no one knows who he is anymore. They're just not the right. It's just not the right sport to make stars of its participants. They've tried it and failed. No one cares. It's a gambling medium. No one gives a shit.
Exactly.
Once you've done your money or won money, that race is forgotten. They don't give a fuck. People don't look back and say, "Oh, remember when I bet that?" Well, they don't. It's just about gambling. That's all it is. And the failure to acknowledge that is the problem.
You made the point earlier about that with the Buffalo Soldier. Any punter that's had a score on that might post a post on Twitter saying, "Oh, that's really sad." But they're more bothered about the winnings.
They'd been gutted if it had dropped dead just before the post. They're in rage. Oh, fucking game! This is what a fucking crooked bastard jockey stopped it before the, all that kind of crap. You get that?
A lot of people that will say things like that will cheer the one that's upside their selection at the last and fall.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, we've all done it.
Cheltenham Festival, when one goes, do you remember when Galopin Deschamps went against Bob Ollinger?
I bet Galopin Deschamps then,
Yeah, what an amazing bet that was. And then it wasn't. And then you could hear the cheers and roars as that it's the deck. The shock also, but you could hear in the filter in the background the Bob Ollinger backers.
Yeah, like, get in there. I get it ready. Yeah. It's true. That's just human nature. It's not right. Of course, it's horrible, but that's just how human beings are. When you inject money into any equation, as you've said time and time again, Bud, it makes you to do things you don't
It
want
comes
to
back
do.
to that Wall Street film, Lou, doesn't it? Makes you do things you don't want to do.
You know, that exact scenario led to one of the finest fist fights I've seen in my life. When every betting shops, handicap chairs from Leicester, and told me regulars were in there. And one of them was called Dickie Davis, believe it or not, but it wasn't the Dickie Davis.
And you got a good touch.
No, it was nothing like Dickie Davis. It was just Dickie Davis.
Yeah.
About 5'2", but about 16 stone. So he was as broad as he was long. The other fellow, Frank Dickinson, they called him. And their two were upsides at the last. And Dickie Davis's horse, I think he was a 60, 80 quid punter, so he'd had something like that on. And Dickie's horse fell. And Frank, with his 5 or 10 on, said, "Get down, you cunt." And that Frank's horse hadn't made it halfway up the run in. Dickie Davis gave him an absolutely immaculate stroke across the jaw. Knocked him off his stool, dived on him and started pummeling him.
Fucking really?
Yeah.
Is that straight? Yeah? God.
And like Frank thought that Frank was bigger than Dickie height-wise and that, had a lot better reach. And they were going at it like soldiers, honestly.
Really?
Unbelievable. Just came out of nowhere. Just come, get down, you cunt. Bang. That was.
So you can have two punters stood next to each other. One's had a £2 place bet on the turf, right? But it's still cheering on even if he's in second and he's going to win. There's the bloke that's had a monkey on the one that gets chinned by it. The £2 place punter is just bouncing up and down going, it's the same
punters,
thing.
we operate out self-interest. It isn't, and this goes to our arguments previously about the racing league. It isn't a team sport. Punters are, punters who play on the exchange aren't playing against Betfair. They're playing against each other with Betfair, the middleman. It is one of the most selfish endeavours you can be is to be a punter. Because all you're interested is in the outcome of your bet. You're not interested in what someone else has had. You might say, "Oh, well done on getting the place put up," but actually, all you're concerned with is your bet. And if it means something dropping dead at the last, you'll take that, won't you? In the moment, you'll take it.
Yeah, in the modern day now, you can't say that publicly. You
can't. I've told you before, when I bet you banked at Watson, and Watson was, obviously paralysed, wasn't it, at the end? But at the time, when I didn't know that, and when he was wobbling, I was saying, "Go on, Chris, finish him off, kill him," because I had 40 quid at 5 to 6, and I was off the sofa, they're putting the old fucking oxygen mask on him. Yeah. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting behaviour. But that's me being candid, and I dare say there are a lot of people, if they're being honest, would have had a similar response if they've had sort of snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, because the previous round Newbank looked on his way out. But that's how punters are, and it's horrible, and it brings out the best in people, but it also brings out the worst in human behaviour betting. There are some wonderful punters and generous bookmakers, and they'll look after you, etc. But fundamentally, when it comes to a few quid, very, very few people are prepared to walk away from it, for the greater good or for moral reasons. They'll take a last fence fall and they go, "Oh, yeah, that's terrible. That all snapped his leg, but I won half a length. I got me 100 quid in. That's it." That's what people are like. And I'm afraid if you don't admit that, you're not being honest with yourself, I don't think.
I got a late tweet on the thread today. Oxford 1 has been on. He said, "I'm a bit late, but the whip. Those veteran chasers require cattle progs to get them things going forward."
Yeah, they do.
10-year-olds, yeah.
They're falling out of love with the game. They don't want to do it. You've made the point before, John, when you look at midweek, these veterans chases, they just don't want to do it. They really don't. They've had enough.
It's hard work.
You can hardly bring yourself to bet on them.
I know. It's not a nice sight sometimes to see one tailing itself off after the first 4 furlongs, because it's just going, "I'm not doing this." That's when they should be retired in the field. When they start doing that, that's it. If I own one anyway.
The BHA should retire them.
Yeah,
good point.
Not accepting any more entries for that horse.
That's a proper regulator.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean you've been stopping it? Oh, that's all right then. Come on in. But yeah, absolutely. If a horse is being tailed off, then the regulator ought to ask the question: why is this horse being tailed off? Does it lack the requisite ability to be a racehorse? If so, you're better off retiring or repurposing the horse, or are you concealing its ability? Which is it? You can't. That's a really interesting point. I mean, it's very bold, and they won't do it. But yeah. You look at some of these horses that have been sort of stopped for a season and a half, and you think, well, the horse is out of love with the game. There's a welfare issue here. Oh,
Yep.
there isn't. Oh, so you've been hooking it up. Ooh.
Wouldn't it be delicious if Langer Dan's
It would.
attempt got swatted out of the
Yeah, but it
baby
would.
chair?
That's my point, and I'm only being sort of half joking.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good point. Because you can't have it both ways. Either the horse has no intrinsic ability, in which case it's cruel, or you've been messing around with it. Neither of which are good for racing. So I'll tell you what, we'll get the horse examined physically and do a deep dive into why this horse is not performing how it should.
Well,
you see some fucking changes then, wouldn't you?
Well, you would. New BHA chief, Luke Tucker's been on. Who has more jobs? The BHA new chair, Lord he is.
Yes.
Lord Kensington Allen. So who has the more jobs, him or Kate Tracy?
Kate Tracy, all day long. No danger.
You're obsessed.
All I'm waiting for is the OnlyFans. That'll be the next thing, won't it?
Yeah.
The OnlyFans, £3.50 a month.
Oh, Lord Allen.
Yeah. Who did you think? Kate Tracy, you fucking pervert. Who wants to see her? Lord Allen all day for us.
Absolutely. John, I'm coming to your prediction. This is a man, by the way, that is very decorated.
Like a Christmas tree.
He's led many major entities, ITV,
Dear.
EMI.
You're not selling it. Yeah. Now defunct. That's
chairman of the executive board of the Labour Party.
But he's got more tomato sauce on his CV than racing.
Yeah. British Red Cross. He's currently still chairman of the Invictus Games.
Yeah, he's busy.
He's a decorated fellow. Not young. He's 67. He's from Lanarkshire in Scotland, and he's built himself up pretty from nothing, really. He didn't go to a private school. It was a state school.
It was a good school. It was approved. Ba-boom.
He didn't go to university. So this is what are we thinking?
He's clearly the man the BHA wanted, because Lee Mottershead pointed out on one of Nick Luck's daily podcasts the job spec was changed shortly before the appointment was made.
Was it?
Yeah, they jettisoned the requirement for a deep and thorough understanding of racing.
That's us out then. That's why we didn't get the interview.
Obviously, they needed their anointed one to fit the bill. And he wouldn't do that if you had to have racing in your blood. Basically, we're left with another careerist appointment, this time more blatant, as he's not, to my knowledge, giving up any of his other posts to concentrate on this. He'll be there when he can, or when time permits. I mean,
when he needs a good
is he that good or that necessary a person? A chair. Isn't he just there to ensure that the agenda's kept to and everybody gets a chance to speak on the subject? Or is he there to steer an agenda, as Salma Smith obviously has?
Yeah.
And the fact that there's going to be a long handover from Salma Smith makes me think whatever his tentacles were wrapped around, this will be a continuation of all things Salma Smith.
I think you've answered your question, haven't you?
The whole thing to me has Harrington's paw prints all over it, another repeat of a failed strategy. They keep doing it, keeps getting worse. There's no one sat round that table prepared to point this out. Maybe they don't even know it's getting worse. None of them probably follow the part.
They don't. That's the problem. They don't know, John. It's not like that they're ignoring it. They really don't know. And he's a continuity candidate, isn't he? There's nothing that you look at his CV and you think, wow, that's markedly different. Yes, there's a little bit more commercial expertise. But look, you're talking about someone at the apex of a commercial pyramid that was effectively steering an already successful and well-established commercial concern, right? You're not talking about somebody, and we're using Barry Hearn as an example, and he wouldn't be my choice, but somebody that has built something from nothing that has made a shitload of money. What you're talking about is someone that has operated successfully within the corporate world, but as a corporate careerist. So, you know, I always balk when people say, oh, he's a businessman. No, they're not. They're corporate careerists. That's different from being a businessman. A businessman builds a business from absolutely nothing, from an idea, and, you know, makes it hugely successful and either sells it or whatever. These are people that have ascended the career ladder, and that's a different skill set. And I dare say it's probably a skill set that the BHA wants, because they don't want anyone to rock the boat. And he seems to be the right person to fulfill that existing agenda, in my view.
Very difficult to argue with any of that. The only prediction I've got is expects quite a bit more DEI in terms of that department.
Do you think so? Well, why would you say that? And I'm not criticising. I just want to know what have you seen that suggests there'll be more DEI?
I think when you become the head of the Invictus Games,
right?
Like, you know what that is.
Yes, I do. Yeah,
it's that sympathetic ear to quality, etc., etc. When you're leading big organisations nowadays, you have to be DEI.
What am I going to get sued for? How can I get sued? Yeah. Let's just try and plug those holes. Yeah. I'm
not going to mention his sexual orientation, but you can Google that.
They pretty much mentioned it now, haven't you?
Well, yeah. Well, I haven't stated it. I don't know what it is, John. I'm denying all knowledge of what it is.
It's a plausible deniability. Yeah.
That's what I see. Like what John says, more of the same, I'm afraid. That's the prediction, which ain't going to bode well for racing. Right, we'll move on.
No.
We don't know in terms of, he's not even sat in the chair yet.
No. Give him a chance.
Playing farts off and things after a big dinner. Big dinner.
And then falling asleep, snoring, mouth open, spit dribbling down your chin. Yeah, usual.
Cesarovic reversal again. Reversal of reversals. Tony Martin Horse got the race back on appeal from the stewards. So just some comments to start us off. Brett Dunkeep. Hasn't he done enough damage? Brett Dunkeep, I like that one.
Good, I like that.
He has done enough damage, hasn't he? I mean, all this whip nonsense, it's all him. I mean, for God's sake, he's like the internal candidate to replace Harrington, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, if he gets the job, it's the last person out to turn the lights out, isn't it, really? Because this has been a farragle.
Other comments on this from RD. Has anyone ever been as consistently wrong in their lives as Bruce Millington is on any subject, i.e. wanting the whip completely gone? Apparently that's the problem. It's not the fact of outnumber of smacks, it's the whip has to go. What's your view on that?
I would agree. I would agree with the correspondent. You know, and Bruce Millington is emblematic, I think, of everything that's wrong within racing. That someone of such meager ability can end up being the editor of the industry's trade paper. You know, in most other industries, except I guess racing and politics, he would be lucky to become regional manager of the Real Toy Makers Guild Northern Branch. You know, it's just pretty much a guy that I think has way exceeded the ceiling of his ability, and that's what's wrong with racing. Now, whether that's just the fault of the people appointing individuals like that to senior posts, or whether racing lacks the requisite talent, I've no idea. But for me, Bruce Millington sums up everything that's crap about racing, and his take on that, I think, is dreadful.
Yeah, John?
Pretty much all of that, really. The trouble is the BHA is painting themselves into a corner over the whip. They've been sensible about it and fought back when all this nonsense started. None of this needed to happen. That's the problem.
Rap Podcast, I think this is the best post on it for me. These are really good questions. They're not like deranged questions. Does the Pro Cush hurt? That's the thing, isn't it? We brought Nick Rust out years ago to show and demonstrate how
it's relative, though, isn't it? I mean, a Pro Cush, Nick Rust, for example, would have a fat ass.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, John.
It would be highly cushioned. However, if you were about to braid Nick Rust on the ass with Pro Cush, and a fly landed on Nick Rust's ass, and you hit the fly would say, "Fucking hell, that hurt," as its guts go through its gob.
Yeah.
I mean, it's relative. It's relative to whether you're hitting a big 17-ounce chaser or a 15-1 2-year-old.
But these are working animals, and I think racing has lost sight of the fact that these are working animals. They are bred for a purpose. They are beasts of burden. Now, nobody is advocating cruelty, but they're working animals. They would not exist were it not for national hunt racing or flat racing.
Well,
so they're not pets, and you see greater incidents of cruelty driving along any road, looking at fields where horses are just wandering around with no fucking water, no coats on, in terrible condition. They're pets. That's the difference. You want to see cruelty, go to your local field.
With Shire horses, they were bred to farm a field for a day and pull the plough because they're very big, strong animals. The antis now would imagine them like, wow, what, a horse pulling a plough all day?
Oh, that's terrible.
How
Yeah,
would we
awful.
manage now if it wasn't automated? Because the antis would be all over it.
Well, that's it. The antis would have to be.
We'd have to strap the antis to the ploughs.
Yeah, use their
hit them
noses
with
to
whips.
fucking.
Rat podcast goes on to say, should we have professional stewards, i.e., who know when a horse is responding or is being beaten up? I agree with that totally. That is something that I think I could do easily. Well, I could watch a race and say, that looks terrible. And then I can look at other races. They could be like 12 or 13 sort of smacks, but they could be in timing. It could be fast ground. It could be a 10 furlong race on the flat. And they're both giving all. Horses are giving all. They're not beaten up. There's horses that you see that it's terrible. In the old days, they'd have 7 or 8 smacks and there'd be 6 clear and they'd be getting another 4 because jockey had $2,000 on. That looks bad. You don't need to whip a horse when it's clear. Put it down. That's the whole point. So, like, there's times when there's been great finishers of the past that would no longer be allowed now under the current, and there's nothing wrong with them. Well, most of them. I mean, there are some that you could probably pull up and say, well, that's a bit naughty, but that's where we stand on that. And again, John said from the start on this, when the whip rules were announced, John said, I think one of our early podcasts after that was announced, he said, well, they're just going to end up getting less and less because they're going to back themselves into a corner on certain things. They're going to be made to look stupid, and that's exactly what they've been made to look here. The fact that there was an air smack proven on video, as in he didn't make contact with it, got him the race, back on appeal.
Stuart Moore from the Rival podcast won the case.
Oh, was it? Was it Stuart? Yeah. Or did they get Irish Stuart Moore? Fantastic.
We have nobody on our votes can do out like that, have we?
Fair play to Irish Stuart Moore's good.
We'd have got slung out.
Yeah, we would. If that had been me, yeah, arguing that.
Hearing would have lasted 20 minutes and we'd have been sat in the pub chuntering.
Yeah. It would. Irish Stuart Moore. Different classmate. Well done. Showing the BHA and the game for what it is, really. Right, moving on quickly. Gambling Commission. Gambling with lies. Oh, we've had all sorts this week. Statements from the Gambling Commission, which I'm going to sum up now. There's some nuggets from the Gambling Commission speech because I don't expect everyone to read it. It's boring as usual, but it's also typical Andrew Rhodes, who to me is on an exit plan because he's getting all aggressive again against the bettors.
Well, we know who's coming in, don't we? So,
well, could be
that money.
Yeah, Mrs. Julie Harrington, says John. That's his tip for head of the Gambling Commission. This is the speech highlighted. So, no plans for a right to bet. So basically, Rhodes there's nothing in there that says we've got a right to have a bet. Anyone has. A bookmaker's just allowed to buy you for no reason. Withdrawal delays, a major issue, yet still no actual enforcement or action. There's nothing. He's declared it's a major issue, as Andrew Rhodes, withdrawal delays for punters who bookmakers pissing about. But there's no punishment. There's no we're bringing in this.
Still doing nothing.
No. And they've said there's a need for an ombudsman.
A need for an ombudsman because they're a shit.
Can't be asked. They're most complaints that go through to Gambling Commission are from punters that can't get paid.
Yeah.
Winnings. And yet they
don't want to know.
It's all in junk box. Terrible, awful. They've got one iota, and that is basic to push gambling harm. And the latest data that they've produced, by the way, it's terrible. You're getting harm groups like Gambling with Lies saying that 44% suffer from problem gambling are at high risk of suicide. It's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. People like Chris Fawcett on Twitter, he looked at the raw data, the same data. This is what they're doing. They're absolute charlatans. You're ruled by fake numbers. Non-gamblers are more at risk of suicide than gamblers as a participation database. So think about that. Us three gamble, right? But then there's more at risk that don't gamble, percentage-wise, at risk of suicide than gamblers. So how are they coming to these numbers? And I can back this up with further data. This is good. The Bishop of St Albans, the Convenor to the Lord's Spiritual. Parliamentary question. To ask His Majesty's government how many young people aged 13 to 18 have been treated by the NHS for problem gambling in the past year. And this follows a BBC article that teenage gambling was massively on the rise. So Baroness Merron, the Parliamentary Undersecretary for the Health and Social Care, replied, The most recent data between the 1st of April 2023 and 31st of March 2024, 11 in the UK aged 13 to 18 were referred to National Health Services for treatment related to their gambling. 11.
Astonishing.
Yet the BBC are parroting this shit. Gambling with Lies are parroting this shit. They're all parroting this shit. Utter shit. Just to add more weight to this, Jordan Lee, who brilliant. He weren't brilliant when he did in 500k in the casinos. He's a recovering addict, but he's a great commentator on this. And he said here, it does not surprise me one iota that little under 100,000 children have a problematic relationship with gambling. There are, we see it daily. But this isn't an army of children gambling at betting shops or regulated websites. Creating that narrative distracts from the problem. Gambling with young people is primarily done peer-to-peer, friends with friends, with gaming via skin betting and e-currencies and social casinos. But we are seeing a huge growth in children gambling on illegal websites using cryptocurrency, which is untrackable. I could send some crypto to a 14-year-old now. Well, not Hugh Edwards here. Come on. I know where we're going. He says it's not that you don't see children placing bets with their dad or heading pub bingo with their mum. You sometimes do. But industry in the UK, to make out there's an army of children addicted to gambling on our regulated market is harmful. It's false. Again, it is false numbers. They're just absolutely going ape shit. They're going full ape with these numbers that just mean nothing. The UK Parliament has answered that 11 young people. That's it. Fuck me. This is where we're at. Chris, just a comment from you on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that you haven't already said that I agree with. But as we've said before, follow the money. You know, that these groups exist to amplify a problem that isn't there. And they'll do so if that problem will attract central money. That's it. It's all about the money. So,
It is
you know, whatever it's cash. Absolutely. So it is in their interest not to solve the problem, but to continually remind government that more money is required because the scope of the problem, the extent of the problem, is far greater than was initially thought. So we need more money. This is a much bigger problem now. Give us more cash. Yeah. And this problem will never be solved because there isn't a problem to solve.
No, Patrick Veitch, Racing Purse, my hero. Don't know why he's my hero.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I don't know, weirdo. Most people have Hitler or something, don't they? You got Patrick Veitch.
Most pound coins spent in a year for a teenager in phone boxes.
Yeah, he's still living on the profits of that.
He is.
Your 50p and mine.
Patrick, if you're listening, you absolutely rate me a pound coin.
And all.
You'd like to send me some back, that'd be good.
Yeah, 30 quid, 50p's. You fucking and he used to talk proper slowly, not slowly as like Nigel Tinkler or Colin Tinkler, should I say, but say, yeah, morning. Never used to get into the bet till about 9 minutes in. Fucking bastard.
Well, he did me a favour with his article, actually.
Go on.
A recent article in Racing Post, and I read it, and I resonated with it. Patrick Veitch said that the data crunchers, the nerds, Chris, are taking over the betting market.
Yes, they are. Massively successfully, I hasten to add,
Computer programmers, they know things.
They do. They're deadly at the minute. I think.
They are. But I'm guilty of obviously following nerdy numbers. I do think I've neglected a little bit, not too much, but I reckon my variables. Patrick says you'd be better off going back now to video watching because the programs can't pick that up. They can get the data out of Timeform, then get the sectional times. They get all the stats, the data of the horse, what they act on, what they don't act on, this, that, and other. What programs and nerds can't do is watch a race and say, well, that's a cunt.
Well, that's not at it. You can upgrade that,
Exactly. And that is the difference, that video watching. And he also mentioned paddock watching. And we've got one here in John. Racing evolves in cycles when you're punting. Sometimes somebody develops a system or an approach that makes a lot of money. And you think, fucking, this is good. And then somebody else discovers it, and then it's eradicated, and all of a sudden,
it's just gone.
You're betting for zero again. But he makes a point that has video watching come back round now against the nerds.
Hopefully, I mean, he makes a good point. You're right. If the edge has been diminished because all those factors are factored into the price in the market, as you say, the machines can't interpret video or can't interpret what they see. So maybe that's where the edge is. Who knows?
He makes a good point also about like physical and mental health in terms of going to the gym, to demand the rigors of obviously studying the game incredibly hard, which I'm going to say, John Werfuck, I'll bring the Family Guy sketch up from a long time ago. Do you remember the one where like they have a fat class and all these fatties come in and they're all like wheezing and coughing and they're opening bags of crisps and they start farting and stuff like before, you know? That's most punters in the UK today.
That's us on a Friday or any York meeting.
Like, it is. And Sir Patrick Veitch, of course, you own the week this week with the Racing Post article because it resonates with me. And you're going to change the way I think. So I don't know if that's a compliment or whether you
I
think...
like the idea of taking on the nerds. Next season, I want to buy myself a leather jacket and a Fonzie bike and roll into town and give it the hey and whatever.
Yeah, and be pelted with eggs if you dress like Fonzie.
The bar stewards will take on the nerds. Exactly that. We're going to do it. We're with the Veitch crowd next year.
Right, as long as he tells us a winner, like, get on to
him. You won't get that.
No chance. Give him a Chinese burn, fart in the room and say you can't leave until you tell us a winner. He'll be out. You'll get a hat trick of winners smelling your farts.
Chris, in the 90s, for £8 worth of pound coins in a BT phone box, he'd give you a lovely couple of bets. But now he
would.
You won't get the steam off his piss. No,
not that you'd want that. But you're right. I mean, my success. I mean, I was an intermittent caller to the Professional. I think it was called, wasn't it? That was his premium rate line. And I must be the only person that never bet a winner of his. Every time I called, his 3-point used to get done. Honestly, never bet a winner with him. I reckon the guy's a bluffer. He don't know anything. It's all bullshit.
That's bollock. Honestly, there was some belters he gave.
Yeah, well, I wasn't on any of them, so I only have your word for it.
There was one day at Newbury, he tips up 4, all 4-1. Cole cost me about £9.
Yeah, I missed that day.
And then next day he comes on, no bet today, but when he says but, your money's going down because you've got to listen. He goes,
come on, you're so
and he finally gets round to saying, we might have an A bet later this week on Friday. So make sure you don't miss Colin on Friday. Beep, 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 beep.
For fuck's sake, someone, are you going to be
fucking Patrick?
Fuck off.
Come off.
Yeah.
Great day.
Yeah. Tremendous.
RTE Sports Person of the Year Awards. I thought I'd bring some fun to the show. Right, so like, this is incredible, right? Since 1985, that's when it maybe started, I don't know. They're getting it Barry McGuigan, so it probably were, right? Because they didn't have a star before that, did they? Christy O'Connor Jr., maybe?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Sonia O'Sullivan's won it 5 times, the athlete.
Never heard of her. What athlete is she? What does she do?
Fucking hell, she's won
never heard of her.
78 gold medals. Also, ping pong. I don't know.
Ghana won it in 1970 for all kinds of everything.
That's right. Remind me of you, yes.
It could have been. But the point I'm getting on, and I was surprised at this, Irish racing is championed as you hear all the Irish punters, and we've got a lot of great Irish subscribers and great Irish listeners that listen to our show. Can we just say, are we all surprised that in this time, so we're talking 40 years, racing has only won it 3 times? It's really surprising, isn't it? Tony McCoy's won it. Our darling Rachel has won it, as you'd expect, because like John said, one year she'd have won everything. And Barry Geraghty's won it. The strange thing is, where's Ruby Walsh on this list?
Well, I think that maybe the Walsh family are a bit of an acquired taste.
Do you reckon?
Well, they could be. I mean, Ted doesn't take prisoners, does he?
No.
They're maybe not quite a big enough family to everybody vote 30 times and get somebody to win it.
But, John, aren't you surprised that most of Ireland's wealth is racing, isn't it? Big earners, McManus.
As Chris said, though, you're invested in the sport. A lot of people are invested in the sport to the tune of their bet. And once their bet has run and either won or got beat, that's the end of the investment. They don't really give a flying fuck whether Roby's winning Strictly Come Dancing or anything like that.
Correct. It's not like a football team, John, where you support them against whoever, whenever, and wherever they play, because it's in your DNA.
Fucking hell, Shakira's
on. I know, Shit, Kira. That's right, not Shakira. Yeah, so that's the point, isn't it? It's in your DNA. Your relationship with racing lasts as long as the bet lasts, doesn't it? And that's it.
Bannymagwigan, the clone cyclone. As far as I'm aware, it started in 1985 when people in Ireland finally got tellies.
That's a lot of Irish listeners gone, isn't it? Thanks for that. Yeah. Subscribers dropped. Yeah. Don't cancel till tomorrow. Yeah, don't cancel next.
How many All-Ireland hurling champions have been winning it then? Because that's all. It's a big thing. And
that's a good point.
I'll tell you, Ken Doherty's won it. Snooker.
Yeah, snooker. Yeah.
Oh, hurling. Here we go. Henry Shefflin, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh God, I think Chris has read this and he's making me pronounce it. Sean Oggo Halpin.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Miss Oggo Halpin's little boy. Yeah.
You know I'm gonna get some fucking stick because you know that's probably
Absolutely.
not how you pronounce it whatsoever.
No, not at all. I'm pretty certain that
Did he
isn't
run
how
in
you
the
pronounce it.
Avenant?
I think he did, yes. Baden, more like, yeah. Go on.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Chris has put me right in there, and he knows what he's doing. He's a professional at this. So we'll move on from that. But Irish listeners, let us know your thoughts. Should more in racing have won the personality awards? I mean, the fact that you talk about the greatest trainer in Ireland since Vincent O'Brien, Aidan O'Brien, has not won it.
Well, Vincent didn't win it, did he? And he was like God of Ireland.
Well, there you go. What are Irish people doing? It's your main sport, for fuck's sake. I mean, I know you love your rugby union and shit like that, but, and hurling and...
Fergus Slattery, didn't win it then.
No. We're running short on time this week, so I apologise. It's sickening when we can't answer the questions of the listeners, but we like the show to be around an hour. So I'm going to finish with 2 questions, and I apologise to the ones we haven't asked. Bert Doncaster, I think this is for you, Chris. Who's your favourite serial killer?
Oh, for me, absolutely no doubt at all, Zodiac Killer. That'd be Arthur Lee. Well, it's not proved. Arthur Lee Allen, Zodiac Killer. I think that's the most intriguing serial killer.
Interesting. I've not heard of that.
Zodiac. It's an unsolved series of murders in California, San Francisco, sort of late 60s. Effectively. Was followed up by sending ciphers to the newspapers, and I think one of those was cracked a few years ago, which is, they managed to work out this sort of deranged ramblings, but an unsolved series of murders, very odd. Check it out. There's a good film about it 5-6 years ago called Zodiac with Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo and all those kind of people in it. But yeah, very interesting story, and there's a lot of stuff online about it for sort of groups that discuss it.
You're very knowledgeable on this, and I shall do.
I like murder. Yeah, mass murder is one of my favourite things.
Yeah, who'd sleep next to Chris's bedroom at night?
not my wife. She's just come in the bedroom now, scowling.
Yeah, like we all do. John, who's your favourite serial killer?
It'd have to be Anatoly Onoprienko, the beast of Ukraine, known as the Terminator also, and Citizen O, which I found particularly appealing. Convicted of the murder of 9 people in 1989. Travelled throughout Europe illegally from 90 to 95. Whether he killed during this time is completely unknown, but he was sentenced to death, later commuted to life imprisonment, died from heart failure.
Bless him. Quite good than that.
I've not heard her either. Producers really bowled me a kipper here because she said her favourite killer was the crossbow cannibal. I said, who the fuck's that?
Jesus.
Said, what did he do? The crossbow cannibal. He says,
I'm guessing he used a crossbow.
Yes, he did. Yes,
and ate him.
Yeah,
that's what she said. She made me look like a complete fool, and then she starts laughing at me, and this is why I've put you on a fucking day.
I'd sleep with one eye open tonight if I were you, mate. Honestly, I think she's got you in her crossbow sights, I'm sure.
I think she had one of these dreams, like I really enjoyed it, and she hadn't told me about it. Crossbow cannibal.
Yes, that's our recommendation anyway for some bedtime reading, that's for sure.
Final question, Samuel the Cat. Last 10 years, people have sadly gone very different. Sadly. Well, yeah, I go with that. Sadly, I agree. Last 10 years on balance, I don't think we've progressed. What group or loss or change has annoyed you the most? Anti-gambling grifters, question time audience, McDonald's paper straws, government, whip strikes, BHA, Karamak removal, betting, workism, welfare, racing blogger. It could be anything. John, what's annoyed you in the last 10 years?
The emergence of that prick Martin Lewis as the champion for the hard.
Oh, genius. Absolute genius. I agree with fucking coupon cutter. What a wanker he is.
Yeah. Put your coupons out. Change your electricity flyer 15 times a month and you might save 28 pence.
Yes.
Fuck you, Martin. Fuck right off, you're a cunt.
Yeah, he is a cunt, and he sold his business for 140 million. Get fucked. He's a fucking journalist, a grifter.
And if you listen to none of this show, just listen to that bit. Chris?
I would say that McDonald's decision put their burgers in cardboard when there was nothing wrong with good old polystyrene, which you had in the 70s and 80s. The cardboard's useless because when you get, if you get delivered or whatever, even if you take it back in the car, if you don't eat at the restaurant, it's just cold. By the time you get in, you always have to microwave it. In the old days,
it's part of the bun, isn't it? By the time
it is. No, it is. It's terrible. But the polystyrene used to retain a modicum of heat sufficient for you to eat it when you go home, and that to me is worse than a war crime.
That's very good as well. But I'll finish it off with Caramac removal. That was actually it's an unbelievable decision. Caramacs were one of the. In fact, John, it proves it in time because John then had to start buying caramels. Like they brought them out in ice creams, and the caramels were like a Caramac bar basically, but in ice cream form. And he loved it. I agree totally. Like the old Caramac bars, it just fantastic chocolate. It weren't quite white chocolate. It weren't quite milk.
Well, no, it was. It was a midpoint. It genuinely was a mixture between white chocolate and milk chocolate. It was absolutely delicious. And why on earth they decided to discontinue that is God only knows.
They've trolled us for years with removals. They're absolute fucking disgraces.
Yeah, and mud shakes. Do you remember mud shakes?
Yeah,
they were like little bottles, like milk and vodka. I mean, what's not to like milk and vodka? But they said, like some kids, primary school kids are coming to work drunk on it. Oh, we can't have that. It's terrible. You know, fucking kids have opened up the bottles and said it was too attractive for children. I used to love mud shakes. You get strawberry, chocolate, the fucking lot. Don't do them anymore.
There you go, kids. You don't get this nowadays. It's the way of the world. I hope you enjoyed this show. Me, John and Chris have. We've covered as much as we can, and we do apologise again for not going through all questions. It was a very busy show. Bye for now.